Welcome back to the JumpifyLabs podcast, the show where founders and coaches who want growth without the guesswork. Here we mix data, AI, and real talk about the systems that drive predictable growth. And today we're talking to someone who bridges that gap between strong operations and strong culture. He runs a 4-part operational audit, and he coaches leaders on the mindset they need to fix it. John Basford, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, good. Let's kick things off. Tell us about the moment you realized that founders don't really have a burnout problem, they have a trust problem.
Yeah, so it probably started more when I switched to consulting and started working with more clients versus being embedded as an employee. Little by little, I started seeing that there's a common trend that most leaders just don't have a process they can trust, and some of that comes from obviously they're not being a process or not being a solid process, but the other part of it too is leaders just operating off of fear and control. And when you operate off of fear, you tend to control, you tend to not let go. That's what creates that desire to micromanage, to look over everyone's shoulders, and not create an atmosphere that really allows the team to learn, grow, and work together.
Yeah, and what patterns are you seeing in leaders who come to you with that feeling of burnout? Not like what are some of the patterns or some of the behavioral traits that they possess that get them into that position in the first place?
Yeah, I think most of them, they don't come to me and say, "Hey, look, I have a fear and control problem." Most of them come to me and say, "Hey, look, we keep busting our ass. We keep working hard day in, day out, and the needle's just not moving. We're not growing in sales. We're not doing this and that. It's not because of lack of effort, but just something's not right, and I don't know what it is." And so we start tackling three components. For me, to be a curious leader and to drive innovation, growth, and change, you really need to rethink how you think, how you work, and how you connect, and that's really what we work on.
Yeah, and let's talk about your audit. You have a 4-part audit that's different from just a typical operations cleanup. Why don't you tell people about a little bit about the audit?
Sure. Yeah. So I think one reason why we're different is that we come into it from a very, very agnostic approach. We don't know going into working with clients what the end goal is. We don't have a specific product we're going to sell you at the end. We're not auditing your business and your leadership to say, "Hey, we're going to sell you recruitment," or "We're going to sell you software." We're going to find the gaps and holes that exist and help you fill those. And so for us, there's really several parts to this. One is the leadership. It's looking at decision-making processes. So much in small organizations, startups, so much time, money, and energy gets lost in indecision. And we help clean that up. We take a look at your culture, whether it's working together, whether or not it is a culture and a staff that is open to adaptability and change. Then we go deep. We go deep into your operations. We're looking at everything from your marketing, your sales, to your HR and governance, and where your maturity and strength lies in each of those areas, not for judgment's sake or to point fingers, but to truly do a analysis of where you are in the moment so we can fix those areas. And lastly, we're looking at the efficiency of your interoperation functions, how you're doing it, why you're doing it that way, to make sure that you, as the business owner, the founder, the CEO, are truly focused on the areas that are going to move the needle instead of getting sucked down into the administrative functions of your business organization.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's definitely in line with your book on curiosity and your whole focus on just being the curious leader. You, as an external team, it sounds like you're curious and you want to dive in, not just, okay, what's the top line revenue, what's the bottom line profit, but you're getting curious about all business processes. So, why don't you talk a little bit about your book and how curiosity plays a big role in your leadership work?
Yeah, so curiosity has kind of been there throughout my career. I'm a natural change agent, and even my very first role, I came back from a training trip and brought some questions back to the leadership of the organization that greatly changed how we operated going forward, and it really led to 5 years of increased revenue, programming, and record breaking attendance for our events. And it's really just all about not accepting the status quo. As human beings, we are creatures of fear, habit, and comfort, and which are all good things. I mean, they exist for a reason, right?
Yeah.
We have fear, so we look twice before crossing the road. We have habits, so we don't have to overthink every little thing like turning a doorknob. But when it comes to innovation, growth, and change, that's where it no longer serves us, right? Fear, comfort, and habit are exist, psychologically, evolutionary wise, to keep us safe. But when you want to grow, you want to change, you got to step outside of that safety and that comfort. And that's where being curiosity comes into play. And I define that as the intentional act of looking beyond your current situations and limitations. That's what allows us to go bigger from a leadership standpoint, to analyze what we're doing from an operational standpoint, and then kind of figuring out the best ways for the entire team to work together to row the boat the same direction and go faster.
Yeah, and if a company gets to a certain point, they've found some comfort in some habits that have got them to that point. And then the first thing that happens is it's usually not a, okay, how can we throw this all process, I'll throw the process out the window, but you come into it with a fresh pair of eyes. So now you're asking questions like, okay, why are you doing things this way? So that leads me to what you shared before, where you helped a company cut accounting time from 20 hours down to one. And I'm sure curiosity was a big driving factor for that. How did that whole process come about?
Yes, I was brought in as a temporary fractional COO. The founding COO left abruptly. My guess is probably got burned out a little bit due to the intensity of the organization. As a lot of startups, it's fast paced. A lot of smart, ambitious people. Things are moving quickly, changing. There's never enough time in the day. And the minute I stepped into that role, the very first week, I saw a nightmare in the accounting functions. And it just like this organization that didn't have any process procedures. They have a US entity, a European entity, literally three sets of bank accounts or four bank accounts, three sets of accountants, all kinds of things that were going on, and everyone saw everything. It was leading to duplicate payments. It was leading to non-payments. And the reason was that because no one knew who was doing what, when, where, and why. And so the first thing I just do is like said, look, it stood out to me pretty quickly, right? Like we've got to change this. You're going to keep, chasing your tail, making duplicate payments and spending way too much time on this. We got to simplify this down. We got to move things over from this side to that side. We got to adopt a small, low cost accounts payable system, and we just streamlined everything down. Instead of every bill that was coming in, 8 people were looking at it. I was like, no one should be looking at a bill until it's ready to be approved. Just the bookkeeper. Let's put up some process procedures. Let's define what goes to which entity. Let's define when everyone touches it. Let's define when payments happen. When you act completely ad hoc all the time, you're just constant reacting, right? You're not operating from the sake of, how do we achieve our intended results as quickly as possible. It's, "Oh, crap, something landed on my desk, let me do it." And without having those systems, you just eat up time, you eat up energy, and everyone just feels lost, even though things are getting done, just not accurately and as efficient as possible.
Yeah, and it's interesting too how you said you came in and you almost immediately saw it. About how long was that company functioning that way?
2 years. 2 years.
Yeah. And then in 2 years, no one thought once to be like, hey, this is not efficient, right? It's like, it's interesting how we just get so comfortable in the habits. So that is an interesting thing for me to kind of just grasp. And it's a reminder to anyone listening that just because it's worked and it's got you there, it's not necessarily going to get you to the next level.
There's no judgment with that. Like everyone does it, right? Everyone has their pieces that they get stuck doing it, right? They're just because we as human beings are creatures of habit and comfort and fear. Our organizations develop the same habits, right? Same patterns, and it's not wrong to fall into that, right? Like I can't repeat that enough. It is a natural thing that we just sink into what we're doing and just keep doing it. The key is you got to create these mechanisms in your operations, in how you run your business, the leadership, the culture, everything that disrupts those things. You create little mechanisms that allow for evaluation, allow for feedback, allow for input on better ways to do things.
Yeah, and with the type of changes going now in the business landscape with the advent of AI, what types of issues are leaders coming to you with lately? What are they struggling with most?
I think most leaders that I work with, they tend to not know, right? They just know something's not working. Or hey, look, we've been doing great. We're a $5 million company, $10 million company, but we want to go to 10 or 20 million. And we want to make sure that our foundation's solid. So it's either from, a place of lack of comfort or lack of knowledge of where they are and what the problem is, or it's, hey, look, we want to dot our I's and cross our T's. because we know and understand that what we've been doing at 5 million, what we're doing at 10 million is not the same thing we're gonna be doing at 20 million. And we just want to dot our I's and cross our T's and make sure that's functioning. And again, I mean, you brought up the accounting example. That tells me so much about how the organization is run, and from several ways, right? Looking at, do they have a defined process procedure and how they're doing things, or are they just working ad hoc and reacting? It also shows me whether or not there's a micromanagement component from leadership. Is the CEO of the seeing when the bill comes in, seeing when it's being entered, seeing when it's being approved, seeing when it's being paid. Are they seeing a bill or invoice at 5 steps of the process? And similarly with money going out, we all know that the biggest part of our business is making sure that money keeps coming, that we can make payroll and cash flow is good. And I've worked with so many CEOs and founders to refuse, absolutely refuse to let anyone in the organization send out an invoice to a client or customer except for them, which again shows me a lack of faith in their team, shows me a complete involvement in fear and control. And I try to get through them all the time. I'm like, look, guys, look, that other CEO, that client person, that person you have the relationship with, they're not seeing this invoice. Right? Like, you see all your bills come in. A normal CEO does not see every bill come in. Their bookkeepers do. Their accountants done. If there's a problem with the invoice, the accounting team from one organization will talk to the other organization. And there's not this dialogue between the salespeople and the CEOs of the company. And so it's really just kind of convincing them to let go and to trust their team and to have a process they can trust. Trusting yourself in decision making, trusting your team and execution are all parts of trusting the process.
John, for founders listening and thinking this might be for me, what's the first step they should take? Should they reach out for an audit? Should they go to your book? What's the best place?
Yeah, definitely go to my website, think-lateral.com. That's my consulting brand. You can also go to johnbasford.com. But yeah, set up a free initial consult. Happy to learn about your business, what problems you're having. There's so many times that, in these initial discovery calls that, I'm able to help, save an hour or two just from little pieces of advice that I can give a CEO or founder or even the COO, right? If the COO is deep in the weeds and needs to get out of that, but just having a conversation about what problems you're seeing, what you're looking to do. We'll come up with a strategy that works best for you and your company. Although we have our audit, which is kind of, goes through the process. I've also worked as a fractional COO. I kind of do some leadership coaching and culture coaching and do workshops and speaking and all that as well. So, we're not a one size fits all, and really can dive in deep to help you pinpoint the problems to find the right solution.
And if you're into TED Talks, John has also had a TED Talk. So make sure just look for him. So you get a little bit of a sample of how it's like to work with John. John, thank you so much for your time, sharing a little bit with our listeners. If you want to reach out to John to explore what he's doing on the curious side of things, be sure to reach out. He shared his website. He's also on LinkedIn. John, thanks so much. If you want more of this, be sure to tune in for more. We'll have more leaders like John on the show coming up in a few short days. Thanks so much. Take care.